and we're going to talk to you today about cloud. And what we thought we'd do in this panel is arrange it with a couple folks with very different perspectives on cloud. Joe Thykattil comes from industry and has some perspectives on the business of cloud and what it means and what you need to think about when you are making a cloud decision. And Ron Dattero comes from academia and has some interesting thoughts and perspectives on the impact of cloud in the data center, specifically around things like ITIL. And we thought this combination of perspectives would make for an interesting discussion. I'm going to sort of moderate the panel, but in reality, what we'd like to do is keep this very interactive, ask questions as the presenters go, and make sure you get out of this what you're looking for. So we'll do brief introductions of these two gentlemen, and then I'm going to be turning it over to Joe. So Ron, do you want to go first and introduce yourself?
My name's Ron Dattero. I'm a professor at Missouri State University. To give you a background on how I'm connected with IBM, going back, we're talking about 10 years ago or so, I guess it's probably about now 15 years ago, IBM came when Rational Application Developer was releasing to Eclipse. So around the millennium, a little bit after, we were more of a dev school in terms of, we're in the business school, but we're teaching programmers. Somewhere though, when our enrollment dropped, IBM says, hey, what about IT service management? So in 2007, in a partnership with IBM, Missouri State University created the first undergraduate degree program in IT service management. Later, because we had that relationship, we were one of the first kids on the block, that's first universities in the world to, and I believe the name, correct me if I'm wrong if you're from IBM, the IBM Smart Cloud Enterprise, our students were given full access to that. So our relationship with IBM has been very strong. The nice news is that the key thing that IBM does, and I'm a little bit warm today, is of course they force professors to think, because many of the time if you're in a university, you have students that are 18 and 22, they don't challenge you, but when somebody has 25 years of experience saying, what about this? Or recently, a number of people said, hey, how come you're not teaching at this conference Internet of Things? How come you're not using wants in its own? That it's very, very good that people at IBM keep on pushing us so we can stay relevant to the job market.
Great. Hey, thanks, Ron. Okay, so Joe's going to start us off. I'll let you know, and then he's going to take us through first couple items, and then we'll turn it over to Ron.
All right. Thanks, Rick. I'm Joe Thykattil, and like Rick mentioned, have some industry experience, been in IT for about 20 years. I'm on board with Time Warner Navisite, and Time Warner Navisite is the cloud hosting arm of Time Warner. But before that, I was an infrastructure manager at a large energy company based in Chicago. And also I've spent some time working at a hedge fund called Citadel, based out of Chicago, a couple prop trading firms, as well as the largest U.S. futures exchange, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, also based in Chicago. So we have some industry experience that I will share. And as we go through the slide decks, we can make it interactive, like Rick mentioned. But I can share my experiences, and I think that's the true value of you all coming here this morning, is to share those experiences and have a back and forth discussion. All right. So I want to do a little brief intro into cloud, and I think some of this is should be self-evident. The cloud tipping point is here to stay, right? It is no longer a scenario where cloud is a secondary discussion, right? Nowadays, when I was infrastructure manager at Exelon, a large energy company in Chicago, it is now the premise that you consider cloud as an option for your project. It's not a secondary thought. And a lot of these factors, including security, tight budgets, people are no longer interested in, especially your end users, your end user business units are no longer interested in taking on large upfront capital expenditures, right, to host a few servers, right? And they want those servers turned up within, that day, not like, wait 6 weeks for a server to be racked, the OS installed, applications installed, testing, QA, etc. They want that turn up to occur soon, right? So I want to walk you through a little scenario. And tell me if this resonates with you. And this is something that we all go through, especially myself. We all enjoy our morning coffee, and you're having your coffee, and you're checking your very, very important emails. And you can see everybody does that, right? Wherever you go, everybody feels compelled to check their email 24/7. That's just the nature of how we become. But before you do that, you have to pay for it. Obviously, it's a service, right? You're getting your coffee every morning. It is a service. But and then you take a seat at the table. But do they ask you to pay to sit at the table? No, right? Do they ask you to pay for the coffee maker, or even a percentage of the coffee maker? No, they do. Do they ask you to pay part of the salary for the person making your coffee that morning? No, at least overtly. Because if they did that, you would go a little crazy, right? You'd be like, what's going on here? I just came in for my morning coffee, and you're asking me to pay for the coffee maker and the place I sit. But this is, how does this come with IT, right? When I used to work at Exelon, when you go and fund a project or a business unit, say finance or accounting, comes in and says, oh, we want this new, financial estimator, or, something to do our, financial planning. The way we approach IT is we say, oh, here are our costs. Here's the servers you have to buy. Here's all the staff you need to account for, full-time equivalents. So it's a different type of experience, and that shift is occurring. It's no longer the scenario where that's the norm. So just a few bullet points. How firms adopt solutions, especially now that technology is becoming commoditized, is very much a financial decision, right? If you go in and ask for a funding proposal for a project, and you haven't done your homework on the total cost of ownership or the ROI, it's unlikely you're going to get approved, right? And we all know that. And all of this changes the model. And this is the scenario that I want to bring out. The cloud delivery model is here to stay. And this is the shift that's occurring, right? We want to move to an OpEx model. All of our customers, including ourselves, want to move to an OpEx model. For example, if you want to use a really great storage array like the IBM XIV, we use it at Time Warner for a lot of our customers, especially with storage and compliance requirements. They don't want to pay for the whole array, right? They want to go to a provider or some service that will let them use this great technology, but more as an OpEx cost, right? That's the whole premise behind cloud, right? So what's happening is technology has fundamentally become democratized, right? The consumption of technology is no longer, oh, if you want to use this type of equipment, you have to be a large company, you have to afford all of this equipment. That's no longer the case. It's more of like, if you want to use this type of service, you could pay less than $100 per month to use this type of service. Here's an example of a large airline carrier, and some of the study that IBM has done around their Applied Insights program, where they've looked at the companies that are setting the pace in terms of adopting innovation are the ones that are looking at increased innovation, reduced time to market, right? A lot of customers will come to us and say, hey, how can we take on this project? And at the same time, how can we get this to market faster than our competitors? And that's what Virgin Atlantic did, right? This is just one example. I'll just share a few comments. So moving to the cloud doesn't necessarily mean a lower cost of ownership. There could be other advantages to moving to cloud, right? Agility. I've seen this often where a business unit, and this happens often, and James and I used to work at Exelon together, and we've seen a finance business unit, if they will come to internal IT, right, which James and I are part of, and if we can't host the system within the time period that they want it to be hosted, they will seek it externally, right? Internal business units are no longer constrained by saying, oh, we have to go to internal IT to get our IT done. They will pull out their Amex card and they will go to an external provider and say, hey, if I can do dev, QA of my systems, my new systems, instead of waiting 8 to 10 weeks for internal IT to even rack that server, they will immediately seek an external solution. So in that respect, in terms of the perceived value from the business unit is we are able to achieve going to market. Our go-to-market strategy is achieved at a faster level. And to quantify that, right, in terms of quantifying that financial return, right, if you can save 8 weeks of developer time, right, that's huge. Developers cost a lot of money, right? And if you can save 8 weeks and get them to production where they're developing their code, that's a huge savings, right? And not only in terms of straightforward savings, but like what are the opportunity costs, right? If you're losing 8 weeks of developer times, what are you giving up? What else could you be doing during that time, right? So those are some of my comments.
And I'll just summarize. It depends. Yeah, no, what it's really getting at is you need to look at the specific cost. And one of the points I really like, if you sit there and you have to try to quantify, if you want to play the numbers, opportunity cost, you actually have to start, it's very easy to say, how I mean, if you say, hey, I don't know because I can't quantify the benefits of the cost reasonably, the answer is, I'll just put my hands up. But you really have to be able to look at the numbers on both sides, cost benefits. I know it's old school business school. I'm from the business school, but it's not this clean thing. What is it? What was the 3 or 4 years ago? What is it? You replace capex with opex. All of it's the slogans. It's not a slogan. Is the other thing I want to say.
I'll give you a third answer, and you decide which one you like best. If we go back to Ron's slide where he talked about SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. So my answer